All right, let's dive deep into Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
It's a memoir filled with personal essays about
Yeah.
womanhood, marriage, parenting, social justice.
It's really got it all.
It really does, yeah.
We're going to go way beyond just a simple summary, though,
Absolutely.
to bring you some of the
Yeah.
thought-provoking themes
Yeah.
and insights from the book.
Yeah.
One of the first things that really struck me
Yeah.
was that image of the cheetah and the Labrador retriever at the zoo.
Right.
Doyle uses this as a metaphor for how women are often tamed by society.
Such a powerful image.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got this wild cheetah,
Right.
Tabitha, who was raised with a Labrador and has learned to behave like a dog.
Yeah.
But Doyle asks this really important question.
Okay.
What parts of Tabitha's true nature, her wildness, are being suppressed in the process?
Right.
And how does that connect to the ways women are often conditioned to shrink themselves, to fit in,
Yeah.
to be less threatening?
To be less than.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Doyle doesn't shy away from exploring
No, not at all.
the ways she has experienced this taming in her own life.
Absolutely. She talks about learning about Adam and Eve as a child
Oh, yeah.
and feeling this sense of shame, like women were somehow
Like secondary derivative.
Yes, derivative of men.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting is that even as a young girl,
Right.
she questions this narrative.
She's already pushing back.
She's pushing back.
Yeah.
It doesn't sit right with her.
Right.
And this questioning of traditional narratives,
Yeah.
it's a thread that runs throughout the book.
It really is.
She challenges everything from gender roles and relationships to her own faith and spirituality.
It's like she's constantly examining
Constantly examining, yeah.
these beliefs that she's been taught and asking herself,
Yeah.
do they resonate with me?
Do they feel true?
Do they feel true to me? Yeah.
Yeah.
And this leads to some pretty major life changes.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Including the breakdown of her marriage.
This is where her deconstruction of traditional marriage is so compelling.
Yeah.
She doesn't just present her experience as a personal tragedy,
No.
but as a catalyst for examining the very foundation of what we consider a successful marriage.
So she chooses her own happiness
Absolutely.
and the well-being of her children
Yeah.
over societal expectations.
Yeah.
What a family should look like.
It's a radical act of self-love.
It really is.
And a rejection of the idea that women should sacrifice their own needs
Right.
for the sake of maintaining appearances.
It's so powerful.
It is.
And this is where this idea of the knowing comes in.
Yes.
Can you explain that a bit more for our listener?
Okay, so the knowing, as Doyle describes it, it's this inner voice of wisdom and intuition.
Okay.
It's that gut feeling that you get, that deep sense of knowing
Uh-huh.
what's right for you, even if you can't explain it logically.
You can't put it into words.
You can't put it into words,
Yeah.
but you just know.
You know?
Yeah.
And she talks about following her. Knowing,
Yeah.
even when it leads her to make unconventional choices, like
Right.
leaving her marriage
Right.
and pursuing a relationship with Abby Wambach.
This trust in the knowing.
Yeah.
It's not just about major life decisions.
It's a way of life.
It's a way of life.
Yeah.
She encourages us to tap into that inner compass
Right.
and make choices that align with our deepest truths.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's hard, even when it goes against the grain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I found it so liberating how she talks about
Yeah.
making decisions from that place of intuition and not second-guessing herself.
Right.
Like she just knows and she moves forward.
It's a powerful message, isn't it?
It is.
It's about giving yourself permission
Yes.
to trust your own instincts.
Your gut.
Your gut.
Yeah.
Even when the world tells you otherwise.
Even when everyone's saying you're crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this ties into her belief in embracing vulnerability and imperfection.
Doyle is incredibly open about her struggles with bulimia,
Right.
addiction, and mental health.
She puts it all out there.
She does.
And I think by sharing her own experiences so honestly,
Yeah,
it creates space for others to do the same.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's like she's saying it's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no shame in seeking help.
She's challenging this idea that women need to be perfect,
They have it all together.
have it all together.
Or-
Instead, she encourages us to embrace
Yeah.
the messy, imperfect parts of
Our
ourselves.
flaws, our struggles.
Our flaws, our struggles. Yeah.
And this also extends to her views on parenting.
It does, yeah.
She talks about raising feminist daughters and human sons.
Yes.
What exactly does she mean by that?
So Doyle isn't just talking about raising nice kids.
Right.
She's challenging the very gender roles we impose from birth.
From the very beginning.
From the very beginning.
It starts so early.
It does.
Yeah.
So for her, this means allowing her daughters to be ambitious and strong while encouraging her sons to embrace vulnerability.
And emotional expression.
Well, emotional expression, yes.
Yeah.
She's raising them to defy the limitations society places on them.
To break free from those boxes.
To break free, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is.
She also seems to be very intentional about having conversations with her children about social justice issues.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm thinking about that story about her daughter, Tish.
Yes.
And the polar bears.
Right. That's a great example.
It's such a great example.
Tish's worry about the polar bears.
Yeah.
It becomes this really profound conversation about climate change.
And the future.
And the future, yeah.
Yeah.
It shows how deeply children feel about these issues and how important it is for parents to have those conversations.
To not shy away from them.
To not shy away from them.
Yeah.
Even when they're tough.
Even when they're really hard.
Yes, absolutely.
It's clear that Doyle is committed to raising children who are aware of the world around them.
Yeah.
And who are equipped to challenge injustice.
And this commitment extends beyond her family.
It does.
She's also actively involved in social justice work.
Right.
Through her organization, Together Rising.
Together Rising, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll dive deeper into that a little bit later.
Okay.
But first I want to talk about the way Doyle addresses
the
complexities of race and racism in the book.
This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Doyle doesn't shy away from examining
her own bias.
Her own internalized biases
Right.
and her evolving understanding of racism.
Yeah.
She talks about the difference between performative activism and genuine transformation.
Right. Doing something just to be seen.
Yes, exactly.
Versus really making a change.
Real change.
Yeah.
And the importance of moving beyond those surface level gestures to engage in real meaningful change.
Deep, meaningful change. Okay. Deep, meaningful change.
Yeah. One story that really stood out to me was the one about the care packages and the church meeting.
The care packages, while well-intentioned, felt more like a way to avoid confronting the deeper issues of systemic racism.
Like slapping a Band-Aid on the problem.
Exactly.
When what we really need is surgery.
We need to go deeper.
Yeah.
We need to commit to real change.
And she makes this really insightful connection between internalized misogyny and internalized racism.
Absolutely.
Arguing that both are forms of oppression that we internalize from our culture.
From the world around us.
From the world around us. It's a powerful point.
It is.
And it challenges us to examine the ways we've absorbed harmful messages about ourselves and others.
About ourselves and others, yes.
Yeah.
Doyle's willingness to get uncomfortable.
She does.
And challenge those around her is really inspiring.
She's not afraid to rock the boat. She's not afraid to rock the boat at all.
Yeah, and she doesn't stop there.
No, she doesn't.
She also tackles the often misunderstood topics of sexuality and gender.
Absolutely.
And she does so with such honesty.
And vulnerability. Yeah.
Remember the story about the woman at the book signing who asked,
"Oh, yes.
Why is everybody so gay all of a sudden?"
What a question.
What a question, right?
Yeah.
But it reflects, I think, a very limited understanding of sexuality.
It does.
It does.
It really does.
Yeah.
Doyle uses this as a starting point to talk about the fluidity of sexuality and gender and how these categories are often too rigid and don't capture the full spectrum.
The nuances.
The nuances of human experience.
Of human experience, yeah.
She shares her own journey of coming to terms with her sexuality and her relationship with Abby Wambach.
And she does so in a way that feels both personal and universal.
Absolutely. It's both her story and a story that so many can relate to.
And a story that so many can relate to.
Yeah.
I love how she challenges this notion that there's only one way to be.
Right.
One way to love.
One way to love, one way to live.
One way to live.
It's a powerful message.
It's such a powerful message.
Of liberation and self-acceptance.
It's about giving ourselves permission.
Yes.
To be who we are.
Be who we truly are.
Fully, without shame or apology.
Without shame or apology, yeah.
This is just the beginning of our deep dive into Untamed.
I'm excited to keep going.
I am too.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Untamed.
We've been exploring Glennon Doyle's journey of self-discovery.
Yeah, her challenge to societal norms.
As we go a little bit deeper, you'll see how her personal experiences really intertwine with these broader themes of authenticity and liberation.
Absolutely.
One thing that really stood out to me was Doyle's honesty about her own struggles with conformity, even those from her past.
You're talking about the homecoming court incident.
Yes.
It's a seemingly small anecdote, but it holds so much weight.
Right, so Doyle confesses to rigging the vote in high school.
Oh.
It's like, whoa.
It's a shocking revelation.
Especially considering her current message of embracing authenticity.
But what's fascinating is that she's not presenting herself as this flawless role model by sharing this story.
Yeah.
She's acknowledging that even those who advocate for self-acceptance have had moments of insecurity.
Have been there.
Yeah, and a desire to fit in.
It makes you think about the pressures.
It does.
Especially for young women.
Absolutely.
To conform to certain ideals, even if it means compromising their values.
Exactly. And this connects to other ways.
Yeah.
Doyle describes trying to shrink herself.
Right.
Whether it's through battling bulimia, numbing herself with alcohol, or silencing her own voice.
All these ways.
Yeah, she's exploring the various ways. We try to make ourselves smaller.
Yeah.
To meet societal expectations.
It's a stark reminder that untaming is an ongoing process.
It is.
It's not a destination.
Not a destination.
You don't just arrive.
Right.
There will be moments when we revert back to old patterns and behaviors.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
That's part of the journey.
That's part of the journey.
Yeah.
And Doyle's willingness to share those moments makes her message all the more relatable.
It does.
She's not claiming to have all the answers.
Right.
She's inviting us to join her on this journey.
On this journey of self-discovery and liberation.
And that's what makes it so powerful.
Yeah.
Doyle's views on traditional marriage are another area where she really challenges the status quo.
Yeah.
Particularly her experience with her husband's infidelity and her subsequent divorce.
It's important to remember that Doyle isn't advocating for divorce.
Right. She's advocating for honesty.
Honesty within ourselves and within our relationships. She's questioning those deeply ingrained assumptions.
Those assumptions that we all have.
We all have. Yeah, about what marriage should be.
Right, what it should look like.
Yeah, and whether staying in a marriage for appearances is truly beneficial.
Because sometimes it's not.
It's not.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that conversation she recounts with the counselor at her kid's school. And the counselor's advice and decision is worse than making a hard choice.
It's powerful advice.
It's powerful advice, yeah.
It highlights the idea that sometimes choosing yourself and your own well-being requires making difficult decisions.
Sometimes very difficult decisions.
Very difficult decisions.
Even if they go against societal expectations.
Even if they go against what everyone else thinks you should do.
Right, because staying in a situation that no longer serves you simply for the sake of appearances can be detrimental.
It will be very detrimental, yeah.
It can be harmful.
Harmful to yourself.
Harmful to yourself, harmful to everyone involved. And this brings us to Doyle's relationship with Abby Wambach.
Yes.
Which, as you know, generated quite a bit of controversy.
It did.
Many criticized Doyle for leaving her husband for a woman.
Right.
But it's crucial to understand that her decision was about much more than Abby.
It was, yeah.
It was about honoring her own truth.
Absolutely.
And choosing a life that aligned with her values.
Her values, including her sexuality.
Including her sexuality.
Yeah.
And she talks about how her knowing guided her to Abby.
Right.
Suggesting that it wasn't simply an impulsive decision, but rather a response to a deeper calling.
A deeper calling, yeah.
And it's worth noting that she doesn't shy away from the complexities of their relationship.
No, not at all.
She explores the initial intensity of falling in love.
Yeah.
And how that eventually evolves
into something deeper.
Into something deeper and more sustainable.
They're more sustainable.
She doesn't present a romanticized version of their relationship. She even talks about the love shrooms wearing off.
I love that phrase.
Acknowledging that the honeymoon phase doesn't last forever.
It doesn't, no.
Which is something we all know.
We all know, but sometimes we forget.
We forget, yeah.
She's highlighting that true love requires effort.
It does.
Communication.
Communication is key.
It's key, and a willingness to show up for each other.
Yeah.
Even when that initial spark fades.
Because it will.
It will, yeah.
And Doyle also discusses their physical intimacy with a level of openness that's not often seen in mainstream media.
This is where her message about untaming really shines through.
It does.
She talks about how she used to approach sex from a place of performance, trying to please her partner, rather than experiencing her own desire.
Her own pleasure.
Her own pleasure, right.
But with Abby, there's a sense of mutual exploration.
Exploration.
And vulnerability.
It's about reclaiming her sexuality And experiencing pleasure on her own terms.
It's about what she wants.
Exactly. And that's a powerful message.
It is.
Especially for women who've been conditioned to suppress their desires.
We're told not to talk about it.
Not to talk about it, yeah.
Not to even think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and moving beyond relationships.
Okay.
Doyle also shares her experiences with mental health, talking about depression and anxiety in a way that's both raw and insightful.
It is. Her description of depression as a body snatcher.
It's so vivid.
It's so vivid.
It really captures that feeling of being taken over.
Yeah, by something outside of your control.
It's like you're not even in the driver's seat anymore.
You're not.
Yeah. And what's so important is that she normalizes these experiences.
She does.
Reminding us that it's okay to not be okay.
It is.
And that seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
It is a sign of strength.
It is a sign of strength.
Yeah, it takes courage to ask for help.
To reach out.
To reach out.
Yeah, and she even shares practical strategies for coping.
She does.
Like writing notes to her up self from her down self.
Right.
So she can remember what it feels like.
To be in that dark place.
To be in that dark place.
Yeah.
Even when she's feeling better.
Because sometimes it's hard to remember.
It is when you're in a good place.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'll never feel that way again.
Right. It can feel so distant.
And then it comes back.
And then it comes back.
You're like, oh, okay, I remember this.
I remember this feeling.
I remember this.
It's a reminder that we can advocate for ourselves.
Yes.
Even when we don't feel capable.
Even when we're in that dark place.
Absolutely.
And this sense of self-advocacy extends to her parenting philosophy as well.
It does.
Absolutely.
Doyle's approach to parenting.
I mean, it's unconventional, to say the least.
Unconventional, yes.
She talks about giving her kids space to struggle, to make their own choices.
Even when it makes her uncomfortable?
Even when it makes her uncomfortable, yeah.
Which I think for a lot of parents is really hard.
It is. It's so hard.
To watch your kids struggle.
To watch your kids struggle.
And not jump in.
And not jump in and fix it.
Yeah, but she recognizes the importance of that struggle.
That it's part of growth.
That it's part of growth, yeah.
The story about her son, Chase.
Yeah.
And his phone addiction.
That's a good example.
It's a good example.
It'd been so much easier.
So much easier.
To give in and let him have his phone back.
Just to avoid the conflict.
To avoid the conflict, the whining, the complaining.
To avoid the hard stuff.
The hard stuff, yeah.
But she stood firm in her decision.
She did, even though it was unpopular.
Even though it was unpopular.
Yeah, it's about trusting her own knowing as a parent and making decisions that she believes are in her children's best interests.
Even if they're difficult.
Even if they're difficult.
Yeah, and she applies this same principle to raising her daughters.
She does.
Encouraging them to be strong.
Yeah. Independent. Independent, to challenge gender stereotypes.
To challenge gender stereotypes.
Yeah, I'm thinking of that conversation she has with Tish.
Oh, yeah, the magazine covers?
About the magazine covers and how they portray women.
Yeah.
It's a powerful example of how we can help our kids deconstruct those harmful messages.
Those messages about gender and beauty.
About gender and beauty.
Yeah.
Doyle emphasizes the importance of having these conversations early and often.
Early and often.
Even when they're uncomfortable.
Even when they're uncomfortable. And honestly, sometimes.
Right.
Especially when they're uncomfortable.
Especially when they're uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's about equipping our children.
Absolutely.
With the critical thinking skills they need to navigate a world that's saturated with harmful messages.
A world full of messages telling them who to be.
Who to be and how to look.
How to look, yeah.
And how to act.
It's about modeling that critical thinking ourselves.
Right. We have to do it too.
We have to too.
We can't just tell them to do it.
We have to embody it.
We have to embody it.
Being willing to question everything.
And challenge the status quo.
Challenge the status quo.
Doyle's entire life
is
a testament to that idea.
She is constantly pushing boundaries.
And inviting us to do the same.
To do the same, yeah.
This is a great place to pause.
Okay.
We'll pick up in part 3.
Okay.
With a closer look at Doyle's evolving faith.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
And her work in social justice.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
We've covered so much ground already.
So much. Yeah.
But there's one more facet of Doyle's journey that we need to explore.
Okay, what's that?
Her evolving relationship with faith.
Ah, yeah, that's a big one.
It's a complex and deeply personal journey that a lot of readers find really thought-provoking.
She doesn't shy away from those tough questions.
No, she doesn't.
In Untamed, she describes a shift
Okay.
From traditional Christianity to a more personalized
and perhaps unconventional approach to spirituality.
She's not abandoning faith altogether.
Right.
She's actively deconstructing and reconstructing her belief system.
It's like she's taking it apart.
Taking it apart.
And putting it back together in a way that makes sense for her.
Makes sense for her.
Yeah.
Questioning those long-held doctrines.
Yeah, those things she was taught growing up.
Exactly. And seeking a spirituality that aligns with her lived experiences.
That feels true to her.
Feels true to her, yeah.
And this really comes through in that story about the church meeting.
Oh, you mean where they're trying to figure out how to respond to the Charleston massacre?
Yeah. That one, what was it?
They were going to send care packages.
Care packages?
To a predominantly black school.
Right. And Doyle kind of points out
she does
how that feels like surface level activism.
Yeah. A way to avoid confronting
the real issues.
The deeper issues of systemic racism.
Like it's a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
And I think that's where her commitment to action really shines through.
This is where Together Rising comes in.
Together Rising, her organization.
Her organization, yes.
Can you tell our listener a bit more about it?
Sure. Together Rising is a nonprofit founded by Doyle.
Okay.
That focuses on connecting those in need with resources and support.
Like a bridge between those who need help.
Yes, exactly.
And those who can give it.
And what makes it unique is their approach to philanthropy.
Okay. How so?
They don't just write checks.
So it's more hands-on?
Much more hands-on.
Okay.
They actively mobilize their community to address a whole range of issues.
Like what kind of issues?
Everything from poverty and racial injustice to LGBTQ plus rights.
Wow, so they're really tackling those tough problems?
They are. They're not shying away from anything.
It's like she's taking her own experiences with heartbreak and turning them into a force for good.
A force for good in the world.
Yeah.
It's a powerful example of how personal transformation can lead to collective action.
And it really speaks to her belief.
Yes.
That we all have a responsibility to make a difference.
We do.
To use our voices and resources to create a more just and compassionate world.
Absolutely. We can't just sit back and wait for someone else to do it.
We have to be the change.
We have to be the change, yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
yeah,
what would you say are the most important takeaways?
It's about embracing our true selves.
Okay.
Even when it's messy.
Even when it's not pretty.
Even when it's not pretty. Even when it's unconventional.
Unconventional. A little reckless, maybe.
Maybe a little reckless, yeah.
It's about challenging societal expectations.
Yes. Forging our own path.
Trusting that inner knowing.
That voice of wisdom and intuition.
That guides us toward our most authentic lives.
Exactly. And it's about being brave enough to say no.
To say no.
To what no longer serves us.
To those things that are holding us back.
Holding us back, yeah.
And to say yes.
To say yes. To what sets our souls on fire.
To what lights us up.
To what lights us up.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that our journeys are unique.
That we're all on our own path.
We are, and they're ever evolving.
Always changing, always growing.
Always changing, always growing. There's no one right way to be untamed.
Right. It's about finding what works for you.
It is. Even if it means breaking the rules.
Breaking the rules, rewriting the script.
Rewriting the script.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's about trusting ourselves.
Resting ourselves.
Honoring our experiences.
Honoring our experiences.
And living a life that feels true and beautiful.
On our own terms.
On our own terms.
Doyle's Untamed is a powerful reminder that we are all capable of extraordinary things.
We are.
We just have to be brave enough to unleash our own wildness.
To embrace our untamed selves.
Embrace your untamed self. The world is waiting.
That's it for our deep dive into Untamed.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Me too. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.
Keep diving deep.
And keep seeking those nuggets of wisdom that make life so rich and meaningful.
Did you get any of that?